Hello, the internet. Welcome to the third video of the Spring and Saturday Board Game Tournament series. This is video 2 of the first round. This is the West Division, and these are our 16 games in the West Division that we played for this particular segment of the video. And I'm going to go over the results and who moved on to the next round and who didn't, because only 5 of these 16 moved on to the next round, maybe 6, but we don't know that yet. So we're going to start off with our 1 versus 16 matchup. We've got Titan, which is an old Avalon Hill game that was reprinted by Wizards. It's a strategy game where you move characters around the map to try to build up your army. And as long as your Titan's alive, you're alive. If you get into a fight with another player and your Titan dies, you're out. Last player with a Titan standing wins. Versus Dungeon Run, which was the 16th seed in this particular bracket. It is a dungeon crawler. That's basically about all to say to it. Titan, being our 1 seed, scored a 17, and Dungeon Run did not fare so well, scoring a 13.5. Dungeon Run is one of those games where it starts off as a dungeon crawler, then after it's sort of cooperative, you got to beat the final boss, and then it's everyone for themselves. The first half of the game is pretty fun, the second half, not so much. And so it scores down a little bit. All right, our 8-9 matchup is a classic Settlers of Catan at the 8 seed versus one you may or may not have heard of, Solar Quest at the 9. Catan, for those who don't know, is a strategy game, sort of an engine builder resource management game. Lots of fun. It's been around forever. I played this first about 30 years ago in Seattle, Washington at Wizards of the Coast Center. Solar Quest, a game from the 80s and 90s. It's similar to Monopoly, but in space with a bit of a twist. There is a variation where you can shoot lasers at other people. And if you roll double 6s, they die. So if you're playing 2-player and you do that, you win. And that's what happened in the 3rd round of the game. So it was very quick. Catan got a 16.5, so it improved its score from last year. And Solar Quest dropped down to a 14 because it was a really quick game. And so Settlers of Catan will be moving on. All right, and then our, I have these backwards, the 5-12 matchup is Ticket to Ride, USA version, versus a deck builder game, Star Trek deck builder game. Both okay games, both scored decently. The deck builder game got a 15, which is higher than it did last year, so it'll move up in the rankings for next year, but it did not win. Ticket to Ride scored a 15.5, so it won the matchup. However, we have 9 games in the play-ins. If you don't know what that is, go to the first video. That scored a 16 or higher. So any game that wins but scores less than a 16 will not make it to the next round. That will be replaced by a play-in game. So Ticket to Ride USA won, but did not move on. The reason why I didn't score enough is because it is a game that we've played a lot over the years. I've had it for almost 10 years. And it's one of those games that you can kind of figure it out, and you really know who's going to win in the first 5 minutes of the game. And because of that, over time, we still like it, but we like it a little bit less. And that's how games go sometimes. All right, our next matchup was the 4 seed of Planet Defenders versus the 13 seed Lord of the Rings, The Confrontation. Planet Defenders, very fun game. Resource management, move robots around to buy robots and buy technologies. A lot of fun, very easy to play, plays real quick. It scored a 16.25. Lord of the Rings is like a Lord of the Rings version of Stratego. I'll be honest, I like Stratego better. It's okay, but only scored a 14. So, okay game, but not great. So Planet Defenders moves on. Lord of the Rings, we'll see you next year. All right. And in the back half of the West Division, we have the 3 seed Elder Sign versus the 14 seed Empire Builder. Empire Builder is a terrain game where you are buying your route and making a route across the country, all sorts of different cities, and then moving your train from city to city to deliver goods, to get money, to build more train, and eventually you have to get a $250 to win. Unfortunately, it's a game that is very, very grindy, and when you're playing with an 11-year-old, grindy games just do not do well, so this one only scored a 14. It's an okay game, but it's too grindy. Elder Sign did really well last year, did not do as well this year. It's a cooperative game. You go on quests to get some rewards. You got to get Elder Signs to close off the Elder Monster before he wakes up. Very fun game, but only scored a 15.5. So it might be not moving on. Between the first and second, the North and West, there was a total of 5 teams that scored under 16. We have 9 spots that are going to get taken up by the 9 teams that scored 16 or higher for the plans. So that means that if 4 or less winners of the next 16 games, next 16 matches, score a 15.5 or lower, Elder Sign is out. But being the higher seed, the 3 seed, if there are exactly 5 or even more that don't meet the 15, or that don't get above 15.5, Elder Sign will stay in just barely. But for now, Elder Sign is not looking good. It might be out. And then we've got the 6-11 matchup. In the 6th seed, we've got Castles of Burgundy, a very fun game. You pick up tiles, you put them on your board, try to build up areas. Tiles have different abilities, and you're trying to score as many points. We had an epic battle that was 2-player, almost 400 points scored between the two of us. Actually, over 400 points scored between the two of us. Epic battle, a lot of fun, and so it did very well. It was one of three games in this bracket that scored a 17. Titan being one, this one being the other, and the 2 seed, which we'll get to in just a moment. It went up against Elysium. Elysium is a card game with a little bit of a twist. You pick up cards, and the cards have abilities until you score them, and you're trying to score them into runs in sets, and that's how you get your points, by scoring those runs and sets. But with all of the abilities of all the different cards and all the complicated scoring, it's a little much for an 11-year-old, and so he didn't rate it very well, and so it rated a 13 out of 20, whereas Castles of Burgundy got a 17. Now, any game that doesn't make it to 14, we take a vote, and we vote as to whether or not the game survives. Not the tournament, mind you, but the library. And Elysium, I'm sorry to say, was voted off of the island. Now, that said, I did not throw the board game. That would be a waste of a board game. We are going to sell it. I threw a volleyball for dramatic effect. But it's voted off. It's gone. We will not be playing it next year. It is done for. All right, so we're down to 99 board games. 99 board games in a tournament. 99 board games in the tournament. Take one down, play it around. Sorry. You don't want to hear that. All right, so the 7-10. This one ended up being the lowest scoring matchup so far in the tournament. We have the 7-seed Valerian versus the 10-seed Tenari. Valerian, if you recognize that name, that is the name of a movie. It was a decent movie. The board game is supposed to be kind of like the movie, very loosely so. Usually the adage is if you like the movie, you like the game. If you don't like the movie, you don't like the game. I don't think that's really true. It's an okay game. It's a dungeon crawler game where if you try to play too aggressively, it will run you over. And that's what happened to this time, is it ran us over very quickly. And so it didn't rate very high this time. Sometimes it's a fun game, sometimes it's not. So it only got a 14. Tenari is a really cute game. Very, very pretty artwork. I mean, you can see the cover there. It's a game where you've got all these fish discs and you got a ship and you move one step at a time and collect the fish. And if you can't collect the fish on a turn, the game is over. Easy to play, very quick to play, easy to score. It's not a great game, but it is a fun game. It's the kind of game that you bring to a game party and you play it while you're waiting for everyone to show up. It's that kind of game. It's a good one, but not a great one. Scored a 14, so we have two 14s. Now, normally if we have a tie, we would vote, and if we don't agree on which one wins, we would take the higher seed. However, 14 is way under 16, and so neither one of these games is going to be moving on. They're both going to be eliminated from the tournament, and we're going to be putting it into a spot, one of the playing games. So to recap, if you go back to the second video, which is the North Division, we had a 5 seed and a 6 seed eliminated from that part of the tournament. We have a 3, 5, and 7. So we have a 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 out. And so what'll happen is if the 3 seed stays gone, then that one will take the best team and put it in that spot. The next best team will go in the 4 seed, and so on and so forth. That is the fifth out of the 32 teams or 42 games that didn't move on at all of either one, that will get replaced by the playing game. And our final matchup, the 2 versus 15. We've got a deck builder game in the name of Rick and Morty. And I know what you're thinking right now. Wait, is Rick and Morty a adult? It says on the box, an adult cartoon? Yes, it is. Does that mean that the board game would be a little on the adult side? Does that mean there's going to be a lot of cards in there that are not appropriate for an 11-year-old? How dare you have your 11-year-old? This is ages 17 and up. Well, there are cards in this game that are not appropriate for 11-year-olds. There are exactly 2 of them, which actually I was a little surprised it was that few. I was like, thank goodness. They're both location cards. I removed them from the deck. We don't play with them. It does not really affect the game. And so we can play it without those. So any bad cards you can just get rid of. But it's a very fun game. It's by Cryptozoic. Cryptozoic makes a lot of really good deck building games. This is one of them. We like this game. It's a very fun game. He had a really good strategy going on, but I built a good long-term strategy and just ran him over with it on the end. But it scored a 17, so it was the third one to get a 17. So we may have some really interesting matchups in the second, third, and fourth rounds. We may see some upsets later in this tournament. I went up against Mondo, Z-Man game. This is kind of a fun one, a cute game. You have tiles, you have to build up a map, and you want to try to build it with as little errors as possible, and you want as many animals on your island as possible, and you want as many areas as possible. And there's 3 rounds. You score each round. Each round is a maximum of 7 minutes, but it could be even shorter. In fact, both players could decide that they don't want to play the round and score -20 and have the round last 5 seconds. The game's going to last a maximum of 30 minutes, including scoring, but it could go much faster. It can be 15, 20 minutes pretty easily. It's a game you can play up to 6 player. It's kind of a fun game, a cute game. It only scored a 13 because I kind of ran my kid over in the first 2 rounds, and he didn't like that. But we did vote to keep it for now, but it is definitely going to be sent down to the plans. As of right now, with the first half done, we have 5 games that scored under 14 and 7 that scored exactly 14 so far, or actually technically 6 because one of them was in the next one. I'm counting them already. And we had 14 in the play-ins that scored 14.5 or higher. So there will be some 14s that make it to the tournament most likely, unless something really crazy happens in the second half of this first round with the South and East divisions. But anything below 14 will definitely be in the play-ins next season if we do it again. So, but that's it for this one. That's these 16 teams. Well, I guess there's only 15 left. Oops, one went away. I said it there. But we'll see with the next 16, and that should be, well, for us it's gonna be like 4 weeks. For you, it'll probably be 2 weeks, because I'm making this in the middle of February, and you'll be putting the first one out, end of February, and this one will probably be out towards the end of February, or sorry, end of February. This one will probably be towards the end of March. at which point I'll be pretty much done with the next video, maybe two. So we'll see. We'll see. We'll try to see how the time goes. But that is that round. And stay tuned for the South and East divisions. Some more really great games and some okay ones. I'll catch you all later. Goodbye.